In this episode with Siri, we talk about, oh my gosh, all the things. It was such a beautiful episode. It was my first episode that I have recorded since having my son. And it felt good. It felt so good to have a conversation with another mom. And we talked about rest, motherhood, entrepreneurship, being mothers that are entrepreneurs, expanding our capacity to receive more joy, needing and receiving help. She talks about how she's been brave and how she feels like she needed to step into bravery. We talk about social media, phone, and work addiction and anxiety. And she, really recognized how much courage it took to say these things, especially when her internal judgment arises for having these addictions or having anxiety. And we really talked about detaching from the collective father wound and generational trauma, and that we as women can be a solution to help our men become more vulnerable. Gosh, I did not expect this conversation to be so beautiful and so wonderful. And she talks about breathwork and how it helps her feel safe for herself, and she comes home to herself, and all the joys of motherhood that come through all of these things that we talked about. And it was, again, just such a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Authenticity came up several times. And, it's just so amazing, these women that I have met through the last almost year, through the podcasting course I took. And I went to this podcasting summit where Siri and I actually met in person. And just to see how many truly beautiful, amazing women there are on this world, on this planet. And I'm just so blessed and so grateful to have these these soulful conversations with these women. And I mean, they're complete strangers to me, so it's just such a gift. It is truly a gift that I can connect and deep dive, really deep, into these amazing conversations with these women, because they are willing to show up so vulnerably and authentically themselves. And I'm just so grateful as we end the month of June with all of the conversations that I have shared with on authenticity. I hope you enjoy this one. Welcome to the Kindred Journey podcast, the podcast where women share their experiences of stepping into courage when comfort is no longer an option. This is the podcast for connecting in community with women who have been shaped by the liberating to challenging seasons that life endures. I am your host, Lesley. I am a wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. I too have experienced these seasons in life, and I want you to know that you are surrounded by a community of courageous, real women here for you. I can't wait to connect, so grab your favorite beverage and join me on this kindred journey. Hi, Suri. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Leslie. I so appreciate the opportunity. I know you were saying that this is your first interview postpartum, and that is a big deal. And it means a lot to me to get to be your first guest after you have had your baby. And it's such a precious, vulnerable time for a mom. And it's also so exciting because you're rebirthed as
Mm-hmm.
to the woman that you are. And you get to start to kind of have your moments of, I remember you brought your baby to the podcast summit where we met, and
Yes.
everyone was holding your baby. Not everyone, like select people
Right.
that you trusted were holding your baby. And it was amazing because it was all women there.
It was. Yeah. No, it was
And we were
such an
all just like,
amazing,
yes, mama.
it was such a humbling experience, because I was
the morning I flew down to LA, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I have a 2-month-old baby. That was the first time I had left our son, who just turned 2, our oldest son, without mom or dad for several
Oof.
nights. And I didn't
Yes.
realize it, like booking it, and and then it leads up to the actual day. And I'm like, I'm leaving my oldest son for 3 nights, and his dad is at home in Idaho, and he was in Northern California with my parents. So it was like, and I know that like they're fine, but still it was just a lot for me as a mom to like
Yes.
do that and then question, where am I going? What am I doing? I'm going, but I was so proud that I did it, because so many women did come up to me and say, good for you for still following your passion. Yes, and right, like to be able to be
Yes.
a mom. And I'm home to that baby in the first few months anyways, that's all that matters to him. So to
Mm-hmm.
be able to take him and do something that fills my cup at the same time, it's a yes, and I'm a mom, but I'm also still Leslie. And like you said, I'm rebirthed after the second baby, and exploring what that is right now and who I am right now. It's such an exciting time. I'm so excited, and thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. And I remember, Leslie, I remember because I used to do conferences and I would bring the baby. And it was so exciting for me to bring the baby. Like, but I also remember the first times leaving the babies, and you're still cut your umbilical cord, their
Mhm.
umbilical cord is still connected to you, and you feel it. You
Mhm.
feel it, and it's real. And also, it's just so good, not only for you, but for the baby. To I trained as a doula, so this excites me to
Oh my
talk.
gosh, amazing.
Like, it's just it excites me to talk about it. It's like our children are so much better for us being female entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
The way that you showed your baby, just like through the experience of, even if, you know, they're not old enough to understand, on some level they're getting it and they're seeing mommy do what she's excited about and lit up by. And I think that's so important for us to keep modeling for ourselves, modeling for our babies, for our children, and modeling for other women.
Hmm. Yeah, no, you're so right. I think all of what you said is so in alignment with authenticity is my word of the year. So I'm choosing to show up for that. And so
Bless
it's
it.
everything that you just said is, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. And I just listened to a podcast recently. It was like, if our kids don't see us rest and honoring rest for ourselves, then they will feel guilty or selfish in doing the same when they're older. And it was just like, because you
Wow.
do sometimes you feel like, oh, I should be doing the XYZ list, or and so really honoring that space to rest, especially in this season of postpartum, freshly, 3.5 months
Oh,
into it. It's still a very, like you said, fragile space, and to honor my kids watching me rest also in this season. So,
yeah. And when you say that, I just see this image of like this kind of mossy, dark green fabric. And I'm like, what does this mean? It's just, I see it as like groundedness
hmm,
and earthiness and nourishment and like this necessity. And yeah, being a mom and being an entrepreneur and showing our children and ourselves the importance of, yes, going for our goals and our dreams and like being out in the world like you did, but also, like you just said, taking the time to nourish ourselves by resting. Oh my gosh, that's equally, if not more important. And
mhm,
women, especially, I mean, I don't know about European women, but especially in America, or other cultures outside of Europe, like we don't value, our society does not value rest enough. And there's such a focus on achievement in America. And I think that there's so much should, like you said, should,
Mhm.
right? There's so many shoulds. As moms, the mom guilt, like
Mhm.
if you're working, you should be taking care of and or paying attention to your children. Is internalized. That's the conditioning that's internalized. If you're out there like you were doing your thing that lights you up, well, should I be home with the kids? Should I be like, and if you're resting, should I be working on my business? Because as an entrepreneur, we're never off. We're never
Mhm.
like fully off. We're always thinking, we're always like ruminating, like, how can I improve? How can I serve more? How can I serve better? How can I get better as the person serving these people to help them more? It's like,
Yeah.
it's never ending. The
It doesn't.
pressure.
Well, I think as moms or women, maybe we just don't know how to turn it off sometimes either. And so I
Yeah.
think being super intentional with breath work or meditation each day, just kind of shutting it down. And I'm very intentional. When my oldest son goes down for a nap, I take the other one and we just shut it down for like 30 minutes. And that's all I need. Like, I don't need a 2 hour nap or, but just to like shut it down for 30 minutes or so and just kind of unwind and then go about the rest of the day. And like you said, it's not valued here in our country as far as rest. Like there's no achievement badge or like productivity from the equal effect of rest. But that's not true because if you truly take like a Sabbath day or a rest day or, shut it down, social media, phones, whatever,
Yes,
physically
yes.
resting your body, the productivity that could come from that the week following or the day, it's all necessary. Like we all need to rest. And I think that's so important. And like you said, it is not valued because there's not a direct, like,
Yeah.
it's not a transactional thing in our society. Like
Yeah, it's
this
not
doesn't,
tangible.
exactly. It's not tangible.
Yeah, I love that expression about, and I wonder if it's from Kate Northrup, but it's someone like that about like, have I rested enough to do my best work as opposed to I've done enough work in order to now rest,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I feel like that's such a paradigm shift. Have I
Exactly.
rested enough to do my best work? I don't think many of us think that way.
Mm-mm. No, and it's on the back end. It's like a reward versus I need
Yes,
this in order to do my best work, right? Like a
yes.
reframe around it. So I think that's so beautiful and so fascinating. And I'm learning. I'm definitely learning in this season of motherhood, in this season of my life. I came from some chronic burnout with my job through the COVID era with I'm an ag appraiser by day and I'm still on maternity leave. I was able to actually get another 8 weeks of my leave extended, which is such a blessing. I advocated
Yay!
for myself. So
Yes, yes.
yes. So in itself, like, but my husband left simultaneously for fire season. He's a wildland firefighter. So he's actually gone. So I was supposed to start back to work and then go into go into single parenting for the summer pretty much the same day. And I was like, I can't do both.
Yeah.
There's no way. And so thank goodness for that and honoring that rest space and like preparing that before going back into that season of full-time, not just full-time momming and full-time parenting, but full-time 9 to 5ing as well. So
So it's so much. I was talking on my podcast, The Authentic Creative, with Heidi Stevens about who we saw
yes.
at the podcast summit. And she was sharing about the importance of, even if financially you can't make it happen, finding ways to like use your community, like create that tribe and have
Mhm.
community where, okay, this day I'm going to have this mom take the baby, take the kids, and I'm gonna have a day to do what I need to do or to rest or what have you, or to go outside and be outside like on my own, or like to just get a little bit of help with cooking or a little bit of help with whatever, like laundry, and that you don't have to have all these reasons. You don't have to have a list to
Mhm.
legitimize needing or receiving that help, I think we can be so proud in the ways that we're not willing to receive that support. And it's
Yes.
not actually serving anyone. We think, oh, I'm so strong because I can handle it. And just because we have, especially like I'm the oldest, right? So where are you in your,
Youngest by
okay.
16 and 18 years. So they're my half siblings. So kind of an only child.
So you might be able to relate is like this thing of, and I think you probably can because I can see who you are, is like feeling like we can do it all.
Hmm.
You know what I like? I feel like there's a pride, and we're stepping out of that age of martyrdom of
Hmm.
like, well, that like badge of honor for being so worn out and like, I did it all. I did it all. And it's interesting because I was talking to another woman on a podcast about having it all. And she firmly believes that we can have it all. And yes, but what does that mean to each of us?
Right. It looks different for everybody.
Yeah, because I don't necessarily want to, quotes, have it all.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. I'm like, I don't think I do want it all.
I just want to be at peace in my heart and in my mind and feel more joy every day, like expand my capacity to feel a little bit more joy more consistently.
Mm.
That's really my goal for success in this moment of time.
And that's a beautiful definition of success and having it all. And again, it looks different for everybody because I feel like like you said, we're kind of at the end of this era, like checking the boxes and I do the house, do the job, do the kids, and it's like you said, we've been kind of conditioned to think we can do it all. And if you look back in time, it took a village, it really
Yes.
took a village. And so to be able to recognize that, and especially where we don't have family here, and where we live. And so to really lean into that village and that community and that system. And I did listen to that episode with Heidi Stevens. It was really great.
Oh, good.
I loved it. Yeah, and I really loved all she had to say at the podcast summit as well. And I think it is true to what she's doing in her era and life and slowing down and stopping and putting your feet in the grass, and just really soaking in the moment because I think we do live in such a fast-paced world and environment and go 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 to
Mm.
really just kind of stop and disconnect. And so for me, I think it's like that 30 minutes in the afternoon to just kind of shut down and restart. And like you said, other cultures, other countries do it so differently than America does. And
Yes, they take their
um
siestas. Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I've loved getting to meet you, and I've listened to I reached out to you, and I know we did. I don't know if it was a quilt call or if it was a podcasting breakout room, but I know we've connected on other calls briefly before. But I'm so grateful to have you here, and thank you so much for taking the time. Before we do get started, I like to let everybody know that this is a safe and sacred space for you to share your story. So everything you do say is honored and respected here. It's your platform and your time to share. So please, thank you for being here and taking the courage to share. And if you do have a specific moment or season in your life that you did step into courage and comfort was no longer an option, I would love for you to expand
Mm.
on that.
Yeah. Well, in the theme of authenticity, I will share as transparently as I can. I don't have anything prepared, but I'm touching my bracelet and it says brave. So this is from an arts and crafts school event where one of the young girls had made a bracelet, and I saw that and I was like, okay, I need that reminder. Every day, I need this reminder to be brave because that 20 seconds of courage is truly, I do think, all that it takes. Unless you're in a war zone and you're just consistently, which is real for people, like
Mm-hmm.
consistently needing to be brave every moment of every day. But most people, some people aren't in the war zones. They're not in that like trauma every single day seeped in it. We're just kind of living pretty decent lives, most of us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making a generalization, and we don't need to feel like the tiger is always chasing us. So, but I just sent out a newsletter before I hopped on with you. Just admitting once again, every once in a while, I have to admit, like, I deal with anxiety quite a bit. So it doesn't, there's not actually a threat to me in my life. Like, I'm probably not going to be homeless. I've got a lot of family and friends. I'm probably fine. Like, it's like there's no logic
Mm-hmm.
to the anxiety. It's just something that's been wired in.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can break down like all the reasons why. I think there's societal stress and the way that TV and movies affect us and the way that news affects us. And I am definitely addicted to my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely addicted to social media, and I have an addiction to work. So there's a low level workaholism that I know that I've adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And, it takes courage to say these things because I don't feel proud about having consistent anxiety, consistent fear. I have the judgment within myself that says, well, you're a teacher of all of these spiritual practices. You're 45 years old. You help other people with this.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you still feeling anxiety a lot of the time? Why are you still not further along in your success in your career if you work so hard? Why are you still using that measure of I've worked hard to show that you deserve to feel good? These are the internal, messages that I have. And so I don't have a trauma to the extent of, you know, some of the people that I've interviewed or maybe that you've interviewed. I have traumas, as we all do, as Tracy Litt says, we're all walking trauma responses. And also, I'm not interested in having those things define me anymore. Like, I would
Mm-hmm.
say probably my biggest wound, I'll call it, is the abandonment wound. And just feeling, and I say feeling, right? Because it's just these stories that we make up about ourselves when things happen, right? We're like meaning making machines, right? So it's like when my dad left when I was in seventh grade, I made it mean, of course, I made it mean that I'm not good enough, that people don't love me, that I'm not accepted, that the specialness is outside of myself, that the continuity and consistency and that feeling of like an integrated rock in my life, that strength is somewhere outside of me, And so to this day, like how many decades later, I'm still healing that father wound. And I think I was talking to my mother-in-law a couple days ago about like the collective father wound because of men going to war and it's still happening. 18 years old, older men sending these baby boys, 18 years old, you're not fully formed yet, off to war. And what that does to our humanity is it exacerbates this father wound of men having to have the quotes sword raised and not being available, physically available, emotionally available, not being able to be vulnerable, like that, the way that that affects our men and our women, the way that that affects me is, you know, my grandfather went off to war, so he was not available to my dad. And so my dad didn't really understand consistent emotional availability, and he didn't really have that integrated experience of love that I'm talking about that I wished that I had had, of like that specialness on that rock energy being inside of me. And so he couldn't really provide that for me. And so, but the good news is that I chose a man that I'm married to that decided, and I said to him a couple of days ago, when my oldest was graduating fifth grade the other day, and we were crying and crying, just watching slideshows and just reflecting back on everything that our family has come through, and this is another graduation. And I just said to Jake, my husband, I said, thank you for being the dad we never had. And I was talking about this with his mom. He, without having the modeling for it really, and no offense to his dad, okay? Like, I get it, has changed the karma, has stopped the patterns of this unavailability. And so the way that my husband shows up for our kids, that is healing me.
Mm-hmm.
It's healing him from his childhood, and it's healing our children. And now my two boys, are going to grow up knowing they're going to grow up knowing what it is to have a father always there
Mm-hmm.
and always as best he can emotionally available. Okay, he's human, like he's not perfect every day, but like he is there and he shows up and he shows up all the time. Like it's incredible. So they're gonna have that in their bodies. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they'll have other trauma.
Sure.
They'll have other stuff. You know, we all have our special way of fucking up our kids, but they won't have that particular wound. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yes. Oh my
So
gosh.
it's really
Well,
exciting.
thank you for sharing. That's yeah, I mean I resonate with that because I have two boys as well. And thank you for sharing everything that you shared about anxiety and the addictions that we all probably we're walking around and we don't even probably realize. Or I think
Exactly.
when we're
Exactly.
doing, yeah, when we're doing the work, we have more awareness around it. So I feel like some people who don't do the work, maybe like you and I do, like the self-development and always wanting to better ourselves and grow and heal and evolve, I think some people just don't even have awareness around it. And something
Yes.
that you said about your husband, it's beautiful because you guys are stopping that generational trauma with you guys. And like not only that your sons are healing from it, but you are and he is as well. And I think like that's such a huge impact. Like that's a ripple effect for down the line. So like you said, they'll have other traumas, but that's part of life. I think, and I think, I don't know
Yeah.
if it was Tracy Lit, but somebody was like, we all have a trauma, like all of us do, whatever it is, like whether we realize it or not. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm just, what a beautiful, I think, was it your newsletter or a Facebook post about Father's Day? It was a very beautiful, I did read
Oh,
that. It
thank
was very
you.
beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I was talking about feelings and the father wound and how even when we have fathers in our lives, that we can still be healing from this father wound, this collective wound.
Hmm.
And And that it's not about placing blame and pointing fingers to the men in our world. It's really about having compassion and understanding, and like, how can we bridge that gap? How can we as women be safe spaces for our men
Mm,
so that they can feel vulnerable?
mhm,
Because there is so much of this chasm because of the wound that we tend to be super extra strong to the point of like they don't actually feel soft and safe, or we push them away, or we, admonish them or criticize them. Like, and so then they do feel like they have to have their swords up.
mhm.
So I think that yes, it's a cycle, but also how can we start to be the solution to that cycle of emotional unavailability, or of, you know, them feeling unsafe to be vulnerable? How can we start to continue, I should say, how can we continue to regulate our nervous systems and make ourselves safe? Because no one's going to do it for us.
Mm-mm. No one's
Like,
coming to get you.
yeah, like my husband, as quote, safe as he can be, and best friendy he can be, and fatherly he can be, he can't do it for me. He can't make me feel
Mhm.
safe. I can make me feel safe. And that is what I learned from breath work. Like on a visceral level, on a primal cellular DNA level, is like, oh, this is what it feels like to give myself the feeling of I'm safe for myself.
Mhm.
And yes, we want our men to be protectors, and they can be, but ultimately, like, if I can know that in 1 hour I can, and I think I like to take an hour. I think like it's worth taking an hour, because honestly, an hour of breath work, I was just talking about this, is like 10 years of therapy.
Mhm.
And because I had therapy most of my life. And when I can create that safety for myself, then I can create it for the people in my life. And that's the ripple effect, you know?
Yeah. No, I think I want to unpack a few things that you said. It was, how can we better hold that space for the men? Because again, this is probably like generational conditioning, like be tough. Don't talk about your feelings, and like you said, how do we better hold that space for them? Because also I've had this conversation with my husband, like, I want you to be more vulnerable with me. I want you to share how you're feeling, because it's your energy when you keep it inside, and you're this energy that is just like in our house and in our space where something's wrong, but you don't want to talk about it because you're a man, and like, then it gets this weird vibe in the house, like, did I do something wrong? Or like,
Yes.
it's like this weird dynamic, and it's like, why I don't want to tell you about everything that I'm worried about or stressed about, or because I don't want to have you worry for it, so it's like,
Mm,
but I'm like, no,
yes.
tell me, share with me. I need this from you. So it's
Yes. It
and
goes
even
both
noticing,
ways. Yeah.
yeah, and like something with our son, he'll say, well, stop crying, and I'm like that, and I don't even think he's like aware of
Yeah.
saying that, because it's a generational, like, again, men have been trained to be tough, all the things. So it's
Oh,
like, no.
I've caught myself being like, can you stop? Please, like, not the crying so much, but it's like if it has like a whiny tone to it, I'm like, ugh, I cannot. I'm just like, the bandwidth is so short when it has like a
Totally.
whiny tone. I've caught myself. Like, we all do it.
Totally. And it's like, I'm not saying, and somebody was like, with toddlers, because I'm in the toddler phase, it's like better out than in, don't hold it in. So it's like
Yeah.
so again, just kind of exploring single mom summer that I'm in right now. And how do we want to navigate this moving forward, especially like when we do become that more family dynamic? Because yeah, the whiny part, that I'm just like, okay, go in the other room or just remove myself. Let him
Mm.
explore his feelings. There's no logic behind anything right now. And I think
Yeah.
that's the hardest part, is like,
Yeah. You can't rationalize with
yeah,
with a child. Yeah.
right. Exactly. So I feel like it's it's interesting that you say that. How could we better prepare ourselves to be the space holders? Because sometimes when you say, I want you to be vulnerable with me, but then it's like, okay, that's enough of the feelings, emotions from me. Like you're supposed to be the tough one, you know? So like we
Hmm.
say, that's what my husband has said a few times. Like you say you want me to be vulnerable, but then when I get like, when shit gets real, it's like, it's almost like,
Yeah, I get that. I get that. There's a Friends episode with Bruce Willis where Jennifer Aniston finally gets him to break down and then he just doesn't stop crying for the whole episode. Have you
yes,
seen that?
yes, yes.
And it's like that. It is like we want our men to be strong and vulnerable and safe and protective and sensitive. Like, of course, we want all of it. But then also, like, we have to be able to have that within ourselves and create that. It's like, it's a lot. It's a lot. So, yeah, I do relate to that of like wanting my man to be vulnerable, but also wanting him to not be
Hmm.
vulnerable. Like, no, 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 that's not sexy. So, but I will say that as I'm speaking this out loud, I love when my husband cries in front of me because I actually do, I do find that it's like that's a strength. And he'll
Hmm.
cry in front of other
Hmm.
people too. When he shares something. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you have a big heart and you're willing to share it.
Hmm.
But what's interesting about your husband is he's a firefighter. So that is a that is like the men at war, isn't it? Because he
Hmm.
literally has to go into fight or flight. Like he literally has to consistently be ready to save lives. That's such a specific way of being like the hero, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I've actually never seen my husband cry. Maybe like a tear. But yes, to put your life on the line for other people is it is like you said, that fight or flight is definitely it's courageous. But like you said, I love what you just said about crying is its own strength. Or there's a like when you see your husband cry, that takes strength, and
Okay,
it is.
he's at an advantage because he grew up as an actor in the theater. So
Okay.
that's his advantage. He is not trying to put out fires.
Right, right. Well, I respect the courage it takes for the men to do, like you said, the men going to war, the babies, like they're 18,
Mm.
um, it takes courage to fight for, and even still today, people enlisting in the army, or like it's their
Hmm.
duty for their country. They want to protect our freedoms, and what a selfless act, like it's so selfless, like it's very humbling. Yes, like he's on a fire right now, and like homes are being burned, and
Mm.
it's risky some days to go out, or whatever it is. It's like
Mm.
it's still kind of, it's a selfless act. It's protecting. It's an act of service. So
And for you, because you're also the one in support of him being able to do that. So you're holding down the fort for him to be able to save those lives. That's a big
yes.
deal. That's a big deal.
Thank you. It used to be single girl summer before we were married. I'd have the best summers because I had a man in a relationship, but then I could go camping with my girlfriends or go to happy hour. And now I'm single mom summer. I'm like, get your ass back here now. Like I need a break. So it's a lot different than it was
Yes.
when we first started dating. I'm actually thinking of doing a month of like first responder wives on the podcast, with the courage that it takes to be,
Yes.
again, because they don't get the limelight that, or the respect that
That's
the
right.
actual first responders do and should. But yeah, it takes a lot of courage to rear a house, rear children, and take care of a household, and if that's a job in itself, but to to do your own job or to have your own career or own entrepreneurship like that. I just listened to a
Yes.
podcast the other day, like I'm breastfeeding, I'm exclusively breastfeeding, and like if you add up the hours for a whole week, it's a full-time job. So I'm like, how
Oh,
many full-time jobs are
oh,
women
it's such a
expected to
full-time job.
do? You know, like
It's such a job. Oh my God. Breastfeeding consistently. And then, like, if you add pumping, because some women do both, right? Like, my first child, I pumped, I hated it. I mean, does anyone love it? Like, it's horrible. But I was pumping and breastfeeding round the clock. Because my experience is once you start pumping, you're always pumping.
right.
You can't stop because you're just producing more milk. And so your body
Exactly.
needs to get rid of it consistently. That's why I didn't pump with my second child because I was like, it's not worth it. Like if I have the luxury of being able to consistently breastfeed, then I'm just going to do that because I can't deal with the pumping because it just makes too much milk. It's
Yeah.
just, and
I
I
already have
remember,
that
oh,
problem.
sorry, go
It's
ahead,
like,
go ahead.
no, it's already an oversupply problem. We actually had a lactation appointment this morning, and she's like, "Okay, we need to start him on a bottle." And I'm like, "I don't want to pump,
Mm,
like, but I need to because I'm going to
yeah.
be going back to work." So it's just one of those things that start
Do that. Zzz,
implementing.
zzz, zzz, zzz. Do you have that one? Zzz, zzz. And the sound is just like,
It's horrible.
and the things that you wear, and like I would strap it on and then it like wouldn't even work, so I'd have to still hold them. Oh,
Oh, it is. I know the bras don't fit right, the everything. It's a whole nother job in itself, like you said. There's the breastfeeding
and do you
and then
just
there's
feel
the
like a
pumping.
cow? I just felt like a cow when I was pumping. I was
Right.
just
Oh
like,
yeah.
am I just like an animal for here to produce? Like it just feels so primal in the worst way.
Oh, it one well, so I'm an ag appraiser, so I appraise farms and ranches for my 9 to 5. And I do appraise dairies. And so I've seen like,
Oh
the
my God.
contraption. I'm like, yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes,
relatable. I'm sorry, honey, like, but
yes.
it's like almost like you said, you produce the more milk. It's like almost a relief once you do pump. It's like, oh, okay, I'm not engorged anymore. So it's
Oh
one of
yeah.
those feelings. It's like it's a love-hate thing for sure.
It is such a relief when you get it out. Yeah, for sure. I was at a funeral one time and I didn't bring a pump with me and I had been away from the baby for like, I don't know, a few hours or something. And it got so painful and I'm like trying to squeeze it out into the toilet in the bathroom. Like I couldn't get the milk out. And it was so rock hard. It was so painful. It was so horrible. Oh. And I was like, my husband's like, why didn't you bring a pump? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't think this was going to be this way. Like, I'll never do that again.
Or especially when you're trying to like stop or wean or it's so uncomfortable at
Yeah.
the end when it's like I'm
Well,
not
and then
done yet.
if you do pump, then when you get home to the baby, you're like, "Oh, well you need to drink the milk that I pumped because I just emptied." Right?
Right.
Like the whole
Right.
timing or like trying to go out. Like I would try to go to the pump station support group, but if I missed my window of time, then I'd have to be nursing again and I was like, now the baby's sleeping on the boob, like I'm not gonna like rush and like get there. I've missed my window to get
Hmm.
out of the house and get that support.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
so
Oh,
hard.
I remember with my first, I was like, this is so, I mean, I feel like the transition from 0 to 1 is truly the hardest. Like I had such a hard time with my first,
Yes.
very much enjoying it the second time around that much more. Cause I'm like, this will end. Like I know, but when you're in it and you're in the thick of it, you're like,
Yes.
this is so fucking hard. Why am I doing this to myself? Like, especially when we came home
Yes.
from the hospital with this one, I was like, the first few nights I forgot. I was like, take him back. I can't do this. I was like, this is too hard.
It's
Like, what
so
was I
hard.
thinking? But it's such a blessing. It's the best. But yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
all the things that we do as women, all the things we do as moms, and like you said, entrepreneur, like just all the things. And we do it and we don't like we can bitch about it, but like we don't truly like like how a man colds, like I'm sick. Like I think I saw like a reel on Instagram. It's like when my husband's sick, it was like him down on the couch in bed, with the ice pack on his head and all the things. And then it was like when mom's sick, it's like she had her tea and she was vacuuming and she was just doing
Totally.
it all still. Cause it's like if we go down, then we all go down. I took my oldest out of daycare for the summer since we're home, and it's like, because if you get sick from here and you bring it home
Mm.
and I get sick and I'm by myself, like we can't
Yeah.
do this. We'll all collapse.
Well, I used to get sick all the time, especially in the beginning stages when they were going to daycare and to school all the time. It was like every month I was getting
Mhm.
sick. And then of course you're still up in the night. You still have to get up early in the morning. You still have to do all the mom things and support your husband emotionally, physically, mentally, like all that. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're like providing the safe space and you're working your business and you're raising the children. It's amazing. And you do deserve a gold medal.
We all do. We all do. And it's not like momming is, I mean, we should all make six figures for momming. Like I swear, it's like
Yeah.
it's the best, hardest thing. But like we all deserve, like you said, we all deserve a gold medal. Something you've touched on, like the father wound, I find it very interesting. And this is your conversation in your interview. I do not want to hijack it whatsoever. But
Oh, please take it. Go.
I can relate with that because I feel like so my dad was a construction worker when I was growing up and he worked out of town and I would see him on the weekends. For most of my like I would say 7 to 12-year-old years. He wasn't always out of town, but there were a lot of seasons or like especially the
Hmm.
summer season where
Yeah.
he would come home on Friday night and leave again on Sunday
Yeah.
afternoon. And I remember
Yep.
standing in the driveway and waving goodbye with my mom and bawling my eyes out. You don't understand. Like you said, there's not a real reason for the anxiety, but it's there, and to acknowledge
Yes.
it and to try and work through
Yes.
it. And for whatever reason, I was gravitated to my husband when we first started dating. And this career, I thought it was sexy. Oh my gosh, it's so hot.
Mm.
You're a smoke jumper. You jump out
Mm-hmm.
of a plane and put fires out.
Mm-hmm.
What was I thinking? No. Um, but like it was the similar pattern of like
Yes.
he leaves in the summer. He's gone all summer. I was used to
Yeah.
that. And he did
Yeah.
say it was a make or break for some of his previous relationships that they couldn't
Mm.
hold the space for him being gone
Yeah.
like that. And I was good with it. I was like, cool, see you later. See you in the fall. I'll be
Sure.
hanging out with my girlfriends or whatever. But like
Yeah.
noticing that pattern and then the similarities and the course that I told you I took several years ago was actually when we
Mm-hmm.
first started dating. I discovered that from Shalina and Aya. That was
Mm-hmm.
the course that I kind of discovered this pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And the other morning when he was leaving for work, our oldest son was at the top of the stairs and just started like crying. I just, for no floodgates, just all of a sudden I started bawling my eyes out because I
Yeah.
saw in our oldest son what I saw in myself as a little girl. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Yep.
hard. Like, thank God there's FaceTime now, but it's still like it's just
It
and
almost
he
makes
won't.
it worse sometimes, the FaceTime, I feel like.
It does. Yeah, it does. I said, can we record a video of you, like a good night and a good morning video, just in
Mm-mm.
case you're not available or we're super emotional tonight, or
Yeah.
because anyway, so I've just noticed like that pattern. Again, he's only 2, so probably not going to remember this, but still,
Well,
it's
it gets it
kids.
gets wi- it gets wired in. It gets
Hmm.
wired in, but also like yeah, like you said, like so you chose your husband unconsciously so that you could heal that wound. And because that was patterned in for you, and your soul chose your father too. And then your soul also chose, and your child chose you. This is my belief, chose you so that your child could heal that generational trauma too. So it's like
Hmm.
you all, as souls, I believe, chose each other to heal this. So, what does it mean to be in relationship with the father hero? The father hero has to be available to help lots of people. It's sort of like being a Marvel character, right? Like Spider-Man or whoever, like Batman, like they have to go
Hmm.
off and save the world. And and what does it mean to be the woman in that dynamic? Like it means being self-sufficient. It means being your own savior. It means being a comfort and safe space for the people in your life. But like also the little girl inside of you that is experiencing through the mirror of your child is getting to reopen that wound. But then also because you're at the helm, like there's a parental higher authority within you that is getting to look at like, oh, this is an opportunity because this wound is like reopening at every age stage that our children are at. We get to have the opportunity to heal those age stages within ourselves. Right. And so I love obviously breath work for this, but like Reiki, the energy of unconditional love, or chanting or journaling, like the artist's way, or, you know, even doing these courses like Shailyana Ayana's course, like we have these tools where we can, in safe ways, with the wound reopening, start to heal it on a new level and heal it generationally. So I think that it's important to know like it's not all just for nothing. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's something that your soul I see it as like the soul is choosing this so that we can evolve as a collective. I think it feels like when we're in it, like we're just in the spiral and it's like never ending, like we're never gonna get out of it. But then we do have these moments of recognition that of our knowing, like our highest wisdom of our knowing, like, oh no, like I am, the spiral is ascending. Like it is ascending, even though it doesn't feel like it is day to day. But actually, we aren't going backwards. We're not going back. Yes, we may be opening those wounds, but like we are healing and moving forward. We are evolving. Our soul doesn't go backwards. It keeps growing. It keeps learning. It keeps getting wiser. So I do think it's important to remember that in the day to day when it's like, why am I still healing from this?
Mm-hmm. No, I like that perspective. And I guess like maybe because I want to be respectful of our time, what like and we talked to authenticity and anxiety and father wound, kind of all the like let's like can we come first full circle as
Yes,
far as
yes,
like
yes. Bring it all
how
together.
yeah, how has that like authentically aligned with you and your purpose with breath work? And maybe you can just elaborate on like kind of full circle, like you said, the spiraling, like maybe bring it in
Mm-hmm.
home full circle
Mm-hmm.
with like alignment and authenticity with you. And like, I love how you said we're all kind of collectively healing, and what a beautiful perspective to look at it that way, and helps with, moving
Well,
forward.
yeah, I think that what you're doing, Leslie, and what I'm doing, what we're doing as podcasters is so important. And I don't think that it feels like it's important a lot of the time.
Mm,
I think it just feels like, for me anyway, is that it, are 20 people listening, or 25 people listening, or 50 people listening, maybe 100 on a good day are listening. Is is that, am I making a difference? Like, I don't see financially the reward immediately. Like, is this tangibly what I'm doing making a difference? But, I was talking to Veronica Romney recently, and she was like, this one opportunity that she just got to speak at this conference, like with Barbie as one of the brands. She's like, that is worth all of it. And
mm,
so I think about that, and I think about not necessarily like a brand like that for me,
sure.
but I think about the times that I've gotten a message, and I'm sure you've had this too, where a woman says, I just needed that. I
Mm,
needed to hear that. And like you even just said to me in the interview today, like I needed that. And so your authenticity, my authenticity, the way that we're sharing so vulnerably, so transparently, so openly, like we didn't have that growing up, really. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have these conversations that we could listen to growing up of women really talking about what's going on with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to one by one, because I'm sharing, because you're sharing the challenges, but also the things we're learning and the wisdom we're gleaning from our experiences. Like we get to really change the world one
Mm-hmm.
conversation at a time. And I think that's what it is. I think, especially in this age of like everything being fake and AI and right, like overdriven by just all of these things outside of our control, that human to human, heart to heart dialogue where we are authentic. I I feel like that's one of the biggest medicines that we have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you're listening to this and you have a podcast, keep going. And I think if you're listening to this and you gain value from hearing us share the stuff we're figuring out, like please keep listening and know that like this is making a difference.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing what you shared in the beginning as far as anxiety and like I'm doing the work, I do the breath work, and why am I not further along in my career or what, all the questions that you have, you're human. And I think that's something that's also like you said with the social media and the perfection and the facade that everybody puts on, like
Yeah.
and conversations like this don't get any more real. And I think that's what people are like truly craving and truly hungry for is the authenticity, the real shit, the hard
Yes.
shit.
Yes.
And like what you said, as far as does this impact somebody or did this help one person today? And that's truly, I started this as a hobby because I am in the early seasons of motherhood and I can't have authentic connection at happy hour like I used to,
Oh,
like, and so like, this is why I started a podcast.
yes.
I created
Yes.
a solution and going to the podcasting summit. It was actually funny. One of the gals that I ended up staying with at an Airbnb was asked me when she first announced the summit, was like, are you going to go? I'm like, Chelsea, I'm going to be 2 months postpartum. No way I'm going to a podcasting summit in LA. Like, are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
And then there I
Mm-hmm.
was, it's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
crazy how things evolve and happen. And then for women to come up to me at that event when I was truly questioning my sanity that morning that I got on the flight was like, thank you so much for showing up with your baby. Like, this gives me courage to show up when I have my second child. One gal,
Yes.
I think, is due in July that was there. And she's like, oh my gosh, you're doing this. And like, and it's just so I can help other women or lead by example for other women to know that it's a yes
You can
and
have
you
a
can be a mom.
life. Yes.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So we're doing the work. We're putting it in for ourselves and not only for ourselves, but helping others as well. And it is a beautiful thing. And like what you said about Veronica Romney, it all leads up to, that thing,
We
whatever it
don't
is.
know. We don't know.
We
We
don't
can't see
know.
it. We can't see it. Every cause that we're making, and I know we're going to close now, but just every cause that we're making,
Yes. And
it's
something
going to
that
have some sort of an effect. We just don't know what that is.
100%. And that's something that I've really tried to unlearn, especially in Kathy Heller's world. Like, don't worry about the how. I'm so
Mm.
analytical in my brain and like, how is it going to work out? It just does. It
Yep.
will. And so, yeah. So finally wrap up. What is something you would have told yourself looking back, hindsight 2020, knowing what you know now, going through this whole experience? I mean, I feel like we could have a whole nother conversation on how you got started in your story more of, but yeah, if there's any advice to your old self, knowing what you know now.
Yeah, I would say that seventh grader that lost her friends in that year and felt like she lost her dad, that she's going to have so many friends and she's going to have so many exciting, life expanding experiences, and to trust. that life is going to unfold beautifully, even in those moments of feeling not enough.
That's beautiful. That's if we all had that wisdom in our young preteen teenage years, I feel like it's such a vulnerable crucial time for us as
Mm.
wanting to belong and have those feelings of safety and certainty. So thank you for that, Siri. And
Mhm.
if you can just share with the listeners where they can find you, they can tap into your podcast. I know you mentioned it earlier, but if you could just kind of share all the things, and I know you offer breathwork courses online, so virtually people can join you.
Thank
So please
you.
share. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I would absolutely love to facilitate for anyone listening. Try this flavor of breathwork if you haven't yet, and you can have your first class for free. So you
Awesome.
can just go on to sageandblushwellness.com and it'll pop up a window that says first class free. You type in your email and it'll give you a code, and you can buy a drop-in class and use that code to zero it out. So your
Perfect.
first experience is on me. And I'm also on social media. Of course, I'm on Facebook, Siri Baruc Thornton. I'm on Instagram as at Siri Baruc Thornton or at The Authentic Creative. I'm sure you'll put it in the show notes.
Yes. Yes.
So, and then the
Awesome.
website is sageandblushwellness.com.
And your podcast is The Authentic Creative.
The Authentic Creative, expanding your capacity to feel good, expanding our capacity to feel good.
Awesome. Well, I certainly feel good after this conversation. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me and listening to the Kindred Journey podcast. If this episode resonated with you, please consider taking the time to rate and review the podcast and share this episode with family and friends who you think might enjoy it. Your positive feedback helps me reach more courageous women like you. This is my passion project, so without you, I wouldn't be here doing this, and I deeply appreciate your support. Until next time.